For a brief moment in late 2024, Apple tried to sell the world on a new perception of Siri. The promise was a seamless, context-aware AI assistant, so integrated it could recall a forgotten name from a meeting months ago, just in time for a chance encounter.
Siri, what's the name of the guy I had a meeting with a couple of months ago at Cafe Grinnell?
You met Zach Wingate at Cafe Grinnell.
Hey!
Zach!
Oh, wow, I didn't think you'd remember me.
Yeah, of course.
That feature was never shipped. The ad was pulled, and Apple now faces class action lawsuits. This isn't just a product failure. It's a direct challenge to Apple's entire corporate strategy. For decades, Apple's playbook has been ruthlessly effective. Observe a new market, let others work out the early kinks, then enter with a perfectly polished, vertically integrated product, like the iPhone or Apple Watch, and capture the ecosystem. But the AI race isn't won with polished hardware. It's a fast, messy, data-intensive war fought with software that is constantly evolving. And this is the heart of Apple's crisis. Its problem isn't a lack of money or engineers. It's a fundamental conflict between the very culture that made it the most valuable company on Earth and the new rules of the AI era. To understand how this conflict is playing out, we need to examine the 5 key pieces of evidence: Apple's history with Siri, the cultural headwinds it faces, its reactive strategy since 2022, its new multi-pronged playbook, and the competitive landscape it now operates in. Let's unpack this. To understand Apple's AI crisis, you have to go back to the beginning. Because Apple wasn't late to the party. They hosted the first one. When Siri launched in 2011, it felt like science fiction. But Siri didn't start inside Apple. It was an independent app that Steve Jobs saw not as a feature, but as the next primary user interface for all of Apple's devices. The vision was for a do engine, an assistant that could handle complex tasks. Jobs personally pursued its acquisition, calling the founder for 24 consecutive days until they sold. But after Jobs' death, that ambition was neutered. Siri's development narrowed to focus on simple, predictable tasks, setting timers, checking the weather, playing music. It became a voice-controlled remote, not an intelligent agent. The problem was a fundamental clash of philosophies. Apple's core DNA, inherited from Jobs, was about curation, building closed ecosystems and showing users what they should want. But a true AI assistant is the opposite. It has to navigate the infinite, messy world of user intent. While Siri was mastering timers, Amazon and Google were building true assistants. By the mid-2010s, Alexa and Google Assistant were racing ahead, while Apple's product, as sources from the time confirm, struggled with basic comprehension and commands. Internally, the AI efforts were scattered. They were siloed across different product teams with no unified strategy. According to insiders, even Tim Cook was constantly frustrated that Siri lagged behind Alexa. The company was building the world's most profitable products, but its AI flagship was being left in the dust. By the time John Giannandrea was hired from Google in 2018 to fix the problem, the damage was done. Siri had gone from a breakthrough to a punchline, a symbol of squandered opportunity. But Siri's failure wasn't an isolated problem. It was the first major symptom of a much deeper issue: Apple's entire corporate culture, the very DNA that built its hardware empire, was fundamentally misaligned with the new age of AI. The stagnation of Siri wasn't an accident. It was the logical outcome of a corporate culture optimized for a different era. The very strategies that made Apple dominant in hardware became direct liabilities in the race for AI. First, Consider Apple's product development cycle. The company is structured around methodical, yearly hardware releases. Products are developed in secret and launched as finished, polished objects. AI development, however, requires the opposite: rapid public iteration. Models improve by being exposed to real-world user data, a process of constant testing and refinement. As one longtime executive noted, Apple sits down to build a product knowing what the endgame is. In AI, that rigid long-term planning process proved too slow to react. Second, Apple's pro-privacy stance created a severe data disadvantage. AI models require monumental amounts of data to be effective. While competitors train their systems on a vast universe of public web data and user interactions, Apple's engineers were restricted. Bound by strict internal privacy rules, they relied on smaller licensed datasets and artificial synthetic data. This principled stand on privacy effectively starved their models of the real-world information their rivals were using. Finally, there was the issue of capital expenditure. Despite its massive cash reserves, Apple was conservative in its spending on the specialized GPUs required for AI training, while competitors like Microsoft and Amazon were making multi-billion-dollar investments to secure the global supply of these critical chips. Apple held back. This created a significant compute bottleneck, directly slowing down their ability to train and develop competitive models. These strategic failures created a deep fissure inside the company. According to reports, the AI/ML division, led by John Giannandrea, was seen as slow and risk-averse, while the software engineering group, led by Craig Federighi, was pushing urgently to integrate large language models. The friction became so pronounced that engineers outside the official AI group gave it a cruel nickname: aimless. But here is the central paradox for investors. Even with these deep structural issues, Apple's core business continues to be a financial juggernaut. In its most recent quarter, the company crushed Wall Street's expectations, reporting its biggest revenue growth since 2021. iPhone sales soared 13%, and its high-margin services business continued to grow. This financial strength creates a deceptive sense of security. It masks the underlying strategic risk and allows the company to fund its new playbook. But it also raises the stakes. The longer Apple's AI products underwhelm, the more it will have to rely on the financial momentum of its legacy hardware, a business that is now under direct assault. So you have a company posting record profits while its own engineers are calling its core AI division aimless. This disconnect between the financial performance on the surface and the messy reality of strategy on the ground is exactly what we focus on. It's the kind of battle we break down every week in our newsletter, ARPU. If you want to understand the hidden forces shaping companies like Apple, the link is in the description. In November 2022, the AI revolution arrived. The release of ChatGPT was the catalyst that made Apple's internal AI deficit a public and strategic liability. The impact inside the company was immediate. According to sources, the launch triggered a company-wide reprioritization. Top executives, who had previously been skeptical, now saw the technology's potential. The mandate was issued. The next version of iOS had to be an AI-driven release. The project, which became Apple Intelligence, was no longer a theoretical research effort. It was an urgent corporate imperative. But this scramble immediately exposed the consequences of their long-standing strategy. Apple quickly realized that its in-house models, handicapped by a slow development cycle and a lack of training data, were not competitive. This forced the company into a historically uncharacteristic position. It had to seek help from its rivals. Apple initiated discussions with Google, Anthropic, and OpenAI, effectively holding a bake-off for the core technology that would power its next generation of software. For a company that prides itself on controlling its entire technology stack, this was a clear admission of weakness. This desperation led to critical missteps. According to reports, Apple wavered on a core architectural decision, whether to build a small AI model that runs on the iPhone or a more powerful one that runs in the cloud. They ultimately chose a third option, a massive, all-encompassing model that undid their on-device privacy commitment and put them on the path to the inevitable delays. The result was a plan born of compromise. The revamped Siri, for instance, was engineered with what insiders describe as two brains, one for legacy tasks and a new large language model-based one for advanced queries. This technical shortcut, designed to accelerate the timeline, created significant integration problems and software bugs. The outcome was predictable. By the spring of 2025, Apple executed a major leadership shakeup. AI chief John Giannandrea was stripped of his oversight of Siri, and the project was handed to Mike Rockwell, the executive who successfully shipped the Vision Pro. But the problems went beyond management. The turmoil and lagging technology created an opening for competitors. In just 1 month, 4 key members of Apple's foundation models team, including its creator Ruoming Peng, left to join Meta's new superintelligence lab, lured by compensation packages reportedly reaching north of $200 million. The initial scramble had not only failed to deliver a competitive product, it had triggered a brain drain of the very talent Apple needed to fix it. A new Playbook was no longer an option. It was a necessity. The failure of the initial scramble forced a strategic reset at Apple. What has since emerged is a new, pragmatic approach to AI, a clear admission that Apple can no longer develop cutting-edge AI alone. The most significant shift is in infrastructure. Apple is finally building the capabilities it previously neglected, with its CFO confirming that capital spending on data centers will grow substantially. The company is developing its own specialized cloud computing chips, codenamed Bultra, and establishing new AI server facilities. This is a direct reversal of its earlier conservative spending, a serious long-term investment in its own in-house AI engine. This isn't just a departmental shift, it's coming directly from the top. On the company's July earnings call, Tim Cook himself reminded analysts of Apple's pledge to invest $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years, stating that, ultimately, we will do more in the United States. He directly addressed the AI lag, promising good progress on a more personalized Siri, and confirming that Apple is significantly growing its AI investments. Apple is also preparing to buy technology it can't build fast enough. Tim Cook has explicitly stated the company is very open to M&A that accelerates our roadmap, a sharp departure from its history of small, talent-focused acquisitions. While talks with startups like Perplexity haven't yet resulted in a major deal, the strategic intent is clear. For the right asset, Apple is prepared to make a large-scale acquisition. But building new data centers and acquiring entire companies takes time, a luxury Apple doesn't have. To plug the immediate product gap, Apple is forced to borrow intelligence from its rivals. By integrating OpenAI's ChatGPT into its operating system, it is outsourcing its most advanced queries. It's a pragmatic but painful compromise that creates a strategic dependency on a key competitor. The company is even in talks with Google to add Gemini as another option, a move that would turn the iPhone into a neutral platform for competing AI models, while Apple races to build its own. This short-term strategy also extends to Apple's developer community. At its Worldwide Developers Conference in June, Apple announced that it would open its on-device AI models to third-party app makers. The intention is to replicate the original success of the App Store and spur innovation from the outside. It effectively turns its developer community into a massive, distributed R&D lab. It's a bet that millions of outside developers can find the killer app for AI on the iPhone before Apple's own teams can. This combination of long-term investment and short-term pragmatism is Apple's new coherent plan. Now, it has to execute it. Apple's new Playbook isn't just about catching up. It's about fighting a defensive war on two fronts, both critical to its survival. The first front is the iPhone itself. The smartphone market is mature, and iPhone revenue has been largely flat for the past 2 years. Wall Street analysts agree that for Apple stock to grow, it needs to ignite a new supercycle, a massive wave of user upgrades. And the only plausible catalyst for that is a compelling, magical AI experience that makes new iPhones indispensable. This is why the delayed Siri upgrade isn't just an embarrassment, it's a direct threat to Apple's core business model. But the second front is a far greater, more existential threat. The battle is not just over which phone has the best AI, but whether the phone itself will remain the dominant personal computer. This threat is now personified by Johnny Ive, the legendary designer who crafted the iPhone. He has partnered with OpenAI to build its potential successor. Their stated goal is to ship 100 million AI companions, screen-free, contextually aware devices designed to make the smartphone obsolete. As one longtime Apple analyst noted, this move from OpenAI and Ive is a direct attempt to catalyze this shift into something tangible. It is an assault on the very paradigm Apple created. Even Apple's own leadership acknowledges the risk. Senior Vice President Eddie Q testified in court that the iPhone might be irrelevant within a decade, calling AI a new technology shift that creates opportunities for new entrants. This is the strategic trap Apple is now in. It must invest billions to make the iPhone's AI indispensable just to defend its current market. But it must also prepare for a future where the iPhone might not be the primary device at all. The outcome of this two-front war will define the next decade of personal computing. So, after examining the evidence, we return to the central question: can Apple catch up? The company's AI problem was never a lack of talent or capital. It was a failure of strategy, rooted in a corporate culture that was perfectly optimized for the hardware era, but fundamentally misaligned with the speed and uncertainty of the AI revolution. Apple is now awake and spending billions, but it is reacting, not leading. It's fighting a war on its rivals' terms, forced to adopt a strategy of building, buying, and borrowing all at once. The outcome is not guaranteed. To track Apple's progress, don't just watch its stock price. Watch these signals. First, user engagement with Apple Intelligence. Is it a gimmick or does it become a daily habit? The key metric will be the usage rates of AI features embedded within core apps like Mail, Messages, and Photos. High adoption means the product is working. Second, the health of the App Store. The real threat to Apple's ecosystem is AI agents replacing the need for apps. The signal to watch is developer behavior. Are they building on top of Apple Intelligence, creating a new wave of revenue for the App Store? Or are users spending more time in standalone AI apps, bypassing Apple's ecosystem entirely? Third, Apple's reliance on third-party models. Right now, complex queries are routed to ChatGPT. The clear signal of their internal progress will be a shift in that balance. Watch for any data or announcements indicating that Apple's own foundation models are handling a greater share of advanced tasks. And finally, watch the leadership team. With COO Jeff Williams retiring and nearly half of Tim Cook's direct reports nearing retirement age, Apple is facing its biggest leadership turnover in decades. The board's faith in Cook remains absolute. But the key signal for the future will be who is elevated to lead this new AI-centric playbook. The most plausible long-term successor is currently hardware chief John Turnus, but in the volatile AI era, stability is no longer a given. The company that taught a generation to think different is now in a position where it's forced to react. Its dominance is being challenged not just by better software, but by an entirely new vision for personal computing. The fight for the next decade has begun. Understanding these underlying shifts, the strategic pivots, the competitive pressures, and the fundamental changes in how value is created is how you cut through the noise and get to the real signal. If you want to continue getting this kind of strategic breakdown of the business of tech, you'll find the link to our newsletter, ARPU, right at the top of the description.